Hello students, welcome to Study Circle. This video is intended for those students who are going to appear for class 12 CBSE board history exams. So today we are going to read theme 2 chapter 8 Peasants, Zamindars and the Estates, Agrarian Society and the Mughal Empire, that is 16th century to 17th century. So this video is completely intended for revision purpose. So if you are new to my channel, please do like, share and subscribe. Now without wasting much time, come to the topic. So what is in the first topic is that crops technology and agricultural production. What is in this topic that is important, that is during the 16th and 17th centuries about 85% of the population of India lived in villages and were involved in agricultural production. Right to the share of the produce created relationship of cooperation, competition and conflict among them. At the same time, agencies from outside, mainly the Mughal state, derived major share of its income from agricultural production. The basic unit of agricultural society was the village, which was inhabited by peasants. Peasants were engaged throughout the year. The agricultural production included tilling the land, sowing the seeds, and harvesting the crop when it was ripe. Peasants were engaged in production of those things which were based on agriculture like sugar and oil. Agriculture not only took place in fertile land but on large tracts of dry lands as well. In addition, forest area made up a good proportion of the territory. While farmers did not write about themselves, our main source of agricultural history of 16th and 17th centuries are those chronicles and documents which were written under the supervision of the Mughal court. Aine-Akbari is one of the most important chronicles written by Akbar's court historian of Abul Fazl. The chronicle recorded arrangements made by the state for cultivation, collection of taxes by the state, and the regulation of the relationship between the state and rural Zamindars. The main purpose of Aini-Akbari was to describe the vision of Akbar's empire, where social harmony was provided by a strong wealthy class. The author claims that any revolt or attempt to establish autonomous power against the Mughal state was bound to fail. In other words, the information about peasants from Ain al-Bari was basically a view of the main officials of the Mughals. Other than Ain al-Bari, we can also use sources which were written from regions away from Mughal capital. They were detailed revenue record from Gujarat, Maharashtra and Rajasthan dating from 17th to 18th centuries. Various documents of the East India Company also provide us useful descriptions of agrarian relations in eastern India. All these sources provide us sources of conflicts between the state and the peasants. Indo-Persian sources of Mughal period use the term Rayyat or Mujarian for a peasant, and in addition the term Kisan or Asami were also used. According to the sources of 17th century, two types of peasants were mentioned, that is Khud caste and Pahi caste. The Khud caste kind of peasants lived in those villages where they had their own land, where Pahi caste were those peasants who cultivated land on a contractual basis. An average peasants of North India possessed a pair of bullocks and the two plows. Cultivation was based on the principle of individual ownership, and land of peasants was sold and bought in the same way as the lands of other property owners. Abundance of land and availability of labor were major causes of continuous expansion of agriculture, and rice, wheat, or millets were the most cultivated crops. Since monsoon was the backbone of Indian agriculture, for additional water, artificial means of irrigation were developed. Most prevalent method was the broadcasting of the seeds. Agriculture was organized into two seasons, namely Kharif, that is in autumn, and Rabi, that is in spring season. Minimum of two crops, sometimes even three crops, were cultivated in a year. Terms like jins e kamil was mentioned in different sources, which means perfect crop, which was encouraged by Mughal state as those peasants earned more revenue. These crops included cotton, sugarcane, lentils, and oil seeds along with cash crops. Many new crops reached Indian subcontinent in 17th century from different parts of the world. Maize from Africa and Spain, tomatoes, potatoes, and chilies were introduced during the period. The new world fruits like pineapple and papaya were also introduced. Now come to the topic 2. What is in the topic 2 is that the village, community, forest and tribes. What is important in this topic is that peasants had their personal ownership in the land. At the same time, where social identity was concerned, they belonged to a collective village community, which included three main constituents. And what are the constituents? That they were the cultivators, panchayat and headman of the village. Agriculturists were divided into different groups due to caste. There were a large number of tillers who worked as agricultural laborers as a mazdoor or who forced to live a life of poverty. Panchayat of the village was a group of elders who had ancestral property. Headman of the panchayat was called mandal or mukaddam, who was generally elected by mutual consensus. As long as he enjoyed the confidence of the elders, he can remain in his office. His function was to prepare income expenditure and was assisted by the patwari of the village. Major function of panchayata was to ensure that the caste boundaries could be upheld by different communities residing in the village. Marriages were conducted in the presence of the mandal, and main function of village headman was to keep a watch on conduct of the members of village community, mainly to prevent any offense against their caste. Panchayats has right to levy fines and expulsion of anyone from the community. Along with the village panchayat, every village had its own jati panchayat, and in most cases, except criminal justice, the state respected the decisions of jati panchayat. An interesting aspect of village was the elaborative relationship of exchange between different producers, sometimes as high as 25% of the total households in the villages. Sometimes it was difficult to differentiate between peasants and artisans because their work coincided. Blacksmiths, carpenters, and even goldsmiths were remunerated by the Zamindars of Bengal for their work by paying them a small daily allowance and diet money. This system was known as Jajmani system. Payment in cash was prevalent due to trade between towns and villages. Goldsmiths in village acted as bankers to make remittances of money and exchange of currency. Women joined hands with males in production process. Men tilled and plowed while women sowed, weeded, threshed, and winnowed the harvest. Women had the right to inherit property, and women in Punjab, even widows, participated in rural land market as sellers of property inherited by them, and they were free to sell or mortgage their land. All India average of forest land was close to 40%. The word jungli does not mean an absence of civilization, but the term was used for those whose livelihood came from hunting, gathering of forest produce, and shifting of agriculture. External forces entered the forest in different ways. Elephants were required in the army. That's why often supply of elephants was included in the peshkash or gift received from the forest people. Hunting expedition was one of the means in Mughal Empire of providing justice to all subjects, both the rich and the poor. Forest produce like honey, wax, gum, lac were in great demand and were exported as well. Social causes were responsible for bringing changes in the lives of forest dwellers, and chieftains of tribes gradually became jamindars and even kings. New cultural influence began its expansion into forested area. Historians suggest that Sufi saint played a great role in the slow acceptance of Islam by agricultural communities. What is in topic 3, that is Jamindar's land revenue system and Abul Fazl's Aine Akbari. What is important in this chapter is that Jamindars were the landowners who enjoyed social and economic privileges. Even though they owned the lands, they did not take active participation in the agricultural production. Jamindar's personal land called milkiyat were cultivated for the private use of jamindars. They could sell or mortgage these lands. Jamindars could collect revenue on behalf of the state and they were compensated financially. Control over military resources was looked over by Jamindars as they had fortresses as well as armed contingent of cavalry, infantry and artillery. Jamindars played a great role in colonization of agricultural land. They helped the setting cultivators by providing them means of cultivation and cash loans. Though the fact remains that Jamindars were an exploitative class, their relationship with peasants was based in reciprocity, paternalism, and patronage. That's why during agrarian uprising, they got the support of the peasants against the state in 17th century. While fixing the land revenue, Mughal Empire acquired specific information about extent of agricultural land and details about produce. When fixing the revenue, the state tried to get maximum benefit, but was not always possible. The Mughal Empire was one of the largest empires of Asia, which was able to consolidate power and resources during the 16th to 17th centuries. These empires, including Ming in China, Safavid in Iran, and Ottoman Empire in Turkey, Indian trade expanded overseas and brought huge amount of silver bullions into Asia to pay for goods from India, which was good for India. As India did not have natural reserves of silver, as a result, the period between 16th and 18th centuries marked a stability in availability of metal currency, especially the silver rupiah in India. Aine Akbari was the result of a large administrative historical project of classification of data. It was completed in 1598 CE after going through 5 amendments and in 42nd year of Akbar rule. It is a part of Akbarnama comprising of 3 books. Historical narration was given with first 2 books and the third book was Aine Akbari or Ain was organized as a compendium of imperial regulation and a gazetteer of the empire. Ain discussed the organization of the court, administration, army, sources of revenue, and physical layout of the provinces of Akbar Empire, and the literary, cultural, and religion of the people. The Ain is made of books, daftars, in which the first 3 books describe the administration. The first part is called Manjil Abadi. Manjil Abadi describes the royal household and its maintenance. The second part is Sipah Abadi, which is all about the civil and military administration and about the system of servants. The third part is Mulk Abadi, which gives information about the fiscal aspects and revenue rates of the center and states. So these 3 are very important. First is called Manjil Abadi, second is Sipah Abadi, and third one is Mulk Abadi. The fourth and fifth part are related with the religious. Literary and cultural tradition of Indian people also contain a collection of Akbar's auspicious say. So Aine Akbari is not without mistake. There were few mistakes in totaling and also skewed nature of the quantitative data as a uniform data was not collected from all provinces. In spite of this, Ain remains as an extraordinary document of its times, and its author, Abul Fazl, achieved a major breakthrough in the tradition of medieval chronicles who mainly wrote about wars, conquest, political machineries, and dynastic turmoils. Ain constitute a benchmark for studying India during 17th century. Now it's time to know the important terms of this chapter. What is in this chapter is that Rayyat or Mujariyat. That means denotes a peasants or peasants. Yes, this is the plural of Riaya. Khud caste. Khud caste were the resident of village who held their own lands. Pahi caste. Pahi caste were the non-resident cultivators who belonged to other villages but cultivated land on contractual basis. Kharif. Kharif were the autumn crop and Rabi were the spring crop. Jinse Kamil means the perfect crop which brought in more revenue, cotton and sugarcane. What is the meaning of Mukaddam or Mandal? Mukaddam or Mandal means the village headman, and oligarchy means the small group of people having control of the country. Patwari were the accountant, and egalitarian means equal power. Grihasti is meant for male head of the household, and Rajshahi is a city in Bangladesh. Pargana means administrative subdivision of the Mughal province. Peskas is the tribute collected by Mughal states. Kilachas were the fortresses. Nakdi were the cash. Subas were the province. Amil Guzar was the revenue collector. Amin means an officer responsible for ensuring that imperial regulation were carried out in the provinces, and Parganat means the Mahal. Arazi or Jamine Paimuda means the measured area. It's not Sugarghal, but it's Sayurghal. Sayurghal means grants of revenue in charity. Sawai is the horseman. Piada means foot soldiers. Fil in means elephant, and Dafles is the part of bow. So this is the full summary of this whole chapter, and this is very important for the revision purpose. So if you like this video, then please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you.